Welcome to the latest episode of FoodTech Stories. I'm your host, FoodTech marketing expert Megan Thomas. FoodTech Stories features the leaders pioneering new approaches to technology, collaboration, and storytelling in the food tech and ag tech space. Food and agriculture are changing, and fresh ideas and leadership are needed to sustainably feed the growing global population. Join us every other week as we talk to a founder, operator, or visionary in food and agriculture. Today, I'm joined by Kara Leong, who's Executive Director of the Integrative Center for Alternative Meat and Protein, ICAMP for short, which is based at UC Davis. Welcome to the podcast, Kara.
Lovely to be here.
Well, let's dive right in. I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about ICAMP. What is your mission?
ICAMP, the Integrative Center for Alternative Meat and Protein, our mission is to create transformative knowledge and innovation that will accelerate the commercialization of sustainable alternative proteins. Our population is growing. Estimates have shown that the need for protein will increase by 25 to 100% by 2050, and that's only 25 years from now. There's many ways to increase protein, meat and protein opportunities. One is to grow more animals, which is forecasted to grow by about 1%, which is not really going to help us along here. The other is to look at protein alternatives, so plant-based, fungal-based, or figure out new ways to grow meat. And that would be something like cell-based. We at the center don't believe that there is going to be an elimination or even a reduction, to be honest with you, of conventional animal agriculture. That's not our work personally. That's different academics and different specialties. What we are focused on is things like plant-based, fungal-based, biomass and precision, as well as cell-based, and everything from the innovation that will produce these new products to the economics involved, the scale-up involved, the consumer acceptance, because if it's not tasty, no one will eat it. We're focused on all of those pieces.
Those fields seem quite disparate when you think about biomass fermentation or cultivated meat, that those may have different rules of the road. Has that been your experience, or do you find that they're more similar than different?
We're in partnership between 7 different organizations. The main bulk of our researchers are at UC Davis. We probably have more plant breeders, and we are probably some of the leading experts in fermentation science. So between the Silicon Valley being really close by with biopharma and the wine industry, a lot of this work, cell-based, biomass, and precision, so fungal-based or fermentation-based, are all fermentation-type science. It's taking very, very small organisms, growing them in very clean conditions, and very large stainless steel equipment that controls heating, temperature, CO2, pH, all of those different conditions. It's very much well aligned with each other, and no better place to be.
So more similarities than differences, it sounds like. What are the organizations that participate with ICAMP?
ICAMP is a partnership between UC Davis, UCLA, Culinary Institute of America, University of Maryland, Baltimore County. We have some amazing fungal genetics researchers out there. Salem Community College, which is only 16 miles away, which has the first 2- and 4-year bioprocessing technical training program. 2 branches of USDA were big. We have human nutrition on campus, and then the Albany plant in the Bay Area works a lot on plant protein processing. And we're also a partnership with UC Ag and Natural Resources, which can be a little confusing for everybody because the University of California system is massive. It's the 2nd largest employer in the state, and most people are familiar. UC Berkeley, UCSF, UCLA, UC Davis. Then there's UC Ag and Natural Resources. It's actually headquartered in Davis, but it's spread across the state, and it works almost like agricultural extension. So it works to get the innovation at the university out into industry. They're working on a really, really large biomanufacturing project right now that we are partnered very closely with them on.
California has a rich history of agriculture. Do you tend to be California focused or nationally focused or globally focused? How do you think about it?
We were the first center of excellence in alternative protein to launch. So we launched in January of last year. So we're only a little over a year old, even though we did take 7 months of planning. So we spent a lot of time with our different partners and a ton of industry, planned for 7 months how we would launch. Not long after our launch, probably another 6, possibly 7 centers across the globe have launched as well. So the Bezos Center funded centers in the UK, in North Carolina, as well as Singapore. And then there are centers in the Netherlands. There are centers in Brazil and China. Beijing just invested $11.5 million into an alternative protein center focused on commercialization. While we have a lot of focus on building an ecosystem in California, there's the larger focus to work with our partnering institutions across the country. There's also centers in Arkansas and Boston. A lot of work being done in Chicago. So working with those. And then, of course, working with our global partners. We've done a lot of work in the past with Singapore because of their focuses. And I expect that to continue.
It's fascinating that you have these different centers emerging. What's behind the growth in seeing these different centers pop up in different regions of the world?
We have a growing need, a growing population, a growing need for protein, food innovation. And who isn't excited about food innovation? It's fun and everybody eats. I've been in science all my life. I've never seen more excitement about science when it comes to food than I have seen. I mean, much more exciting to think about food innovation in biotech than, to be honest, biopharma, right?
Food is something we all eat every day, and it has not only delivers those functional benefits that we need, but also emotional. It's connected to memory and culture and family and so many powerful connections there. You have an eclectic background, I noted, Kara. How did you come to lead iCamp?
Well, it wasn't the original plan coming to college to go into food innovation, let alone alternative proteins, which didn't exist way back when. I'm a 3-time UC Davis alum. I originally came thinking I'd be a vegetable breeder. Why somebody at 17 thinks there's a need for giant vegetables, but that was my plan when I originally came to college. That changed rather quickly. I worked in 6 different academic research labs in my first degree, plant biology and molecular genetics. I worked at 2 different biotech companies right out of college. And then I went back, got a degree in environmental design. I was a landscape designer and a stay-at-home mom for a very, very long time. And then when I was in my 40s, I decided, you know what? I have some things that I still want to do now that my kiddo's in school full time. I went back and I got a master's in wine fermentation. And I realized at age 42, almost 45 when I graduated, that I wasn't 25 and I wasn't going to be cleaning out wine tanks anytime soon. I got a professional fundraising certification. And I went back to the university as an external relations officer and in philanthropic funding for the Office of Research. I supported 7 different programs and centers across the university, including our biotech program and our tech transfer office and our startup office. So having an alum and having one with a scientific background is really rare in philanthropic development. Alternative protein, the Good Food Institute was just starting to come to UC Davis, and a lot of the alternative protein companies, of which we have many, many alumni in, since 40% of all those companies are in the Bay Area or the state of California. It was an untapped region with a lot of scientific background that needed a lot of facilitation. So I helped bring a lot of that industry to campus, and we got some really great funding based on that momentum. So we received the first state and federal funding for cell-based research. I was invited to be chief of staff for a Singapore-based alternative protein company. Promised myself a year in industry. I stayed exactly 365 days before returning to the university to help run what was supposed to be the UC Davis Cultivated Meat Consortium. The very first day we started developing a center to go for all routes to alternative protein. So, and after 7 months, we launched.
I imagine that you use all of those different skill sets in your current role, being that you've worked in these disparate fields. What about working in an academic university setting was appealing to you versus staying in industry?
I've been around academia all my life. My mother was a professor at Oregon State University, and she was a virologist. And then she went on to become the director of the Leong Institute for Marine Biology. I've been around that academic sector. I understand it just as much as I understand industry. There's something about being around students and being around new research and being around all the different things that a very large research academic institution brings to it. The speakers, the industry, the constant life. I'm a bit of an extrovert, so I kind of need that constant information coming my way. So it's a large part of the reason why I came back.
Certainly versus working in a large company, it's much more dynamic and I imagine exciting ideas and methods coming forward. So shifting back to the work of iCamp, what are the top challenges that you're seeing in the alternative protein space right now?
I'd say there's actually three big ones that we're trying to tackle in many different ways. Policy, there's probably 57 bills that going across the country right now, trying to ban the sales or marketing and labeling of alternative proteins. We have to walk very carefully on that space because it is political minefield right now. And then also consumer acceptance plays in a lot with that policy. Consumer acceptance, understanding what these new food innovations are, driving taste and availability is huge. That rolls into scale up, which can roll into policy again because it's all about funding, right? Food innovation was huge and hot topic back in 2019. 2022, 2023, the funding just dropped out of the market. And therefore, all these companies that are trying to scale up, there isn't the funding for that type of infrastructure. There isn't a lot of appetite to fund steel. Those are the big challenges that we are working in many diverse ways to try to solve.
And there are a couple of areas I'd like to dig a bit deeper into. You mentioned the consumer, and I also think it's interesting that the Culinary Institute of America is affiliated with your organization. So how do you bring the voice of the consumer or integrate larger food trends into the work that you're doing?
Well, that's one of the things that I'm really excited about. I worked for 7 months with a volunteer group because we're very scrappy. I think we all need to be scrappy right now. Just to understand UC Davis as an example, all food across UC Davis. So all dining halls, all marketplaces, all restaurants, all food trucks, even catering, even vending machines are all under one house at UC Davis. During the academic year, we have 42,000 students. 97% of our freshman population eats on campus. 30,000 meals a day during the academic year. We buy more Beyond Meat than any grocery store chain. I think it averages out to be about 10,000 pounds a year. And you're talking about a very young population in an early adopter state. That is a huge consumer base. And then that's just here at Davis. At UCLA, that's 34,000 meals a day. There are 10 campuses across the UC system. That's a huge amount of food. It's a huge amount of young, curious, new consumers or young consumers. It's not going to be you. It's not going to be me. It's not going to be our generation that is eating these products on a regular basis, that it's part of their lexicon. It's going to be the younger generation, the college students, and to be honest, most likely the high schoolers and the middle schoolers that are going to really be taking on new food innovation. It's a great place to start and not to do anything that they're not already doing. Every campus, every dining hall meets new vendors all the time, but it provides a platform that is very recognizable that we're calling iCamp Experience. We can introduce new food products to these students and also teach them what they are. This is fungal-based steak bites, or this is a hybrid product between plant-based and wonderful proteins for added nutrition. There's just a lot of opportunity there, and not only to teach them what it is and for them to taste the products, but also to understand what the new job opportunities might be. Food is exciting and fun. If we can do that, then we can get in front of a very large population. And it's great for the food producers too. It gives them a chance to test out recipe formulations and marketing and build some of that brand recognition. The dining halls and the chefs, they'll look at the products and figure out how they want to cook it and present it and whether they like it. We'll put it forward to the students in the best shape and form that we can and say, hey, these are the different things, try them out.
I think that's an extremely intelligent approach. And that certainly the research we've done about food tech is that younger adults are predisposed to seek out food tech products and even see it as a feature versus a bug, especially younger men. This is a generation that's grown up seeing technology as an enabler of great things in their lives. You talk about educating or building awareness with students. How do you actually do that? Can you give an example of how one brand or one type of food has approached that on campus?
We have several student groups. Our Food Tech Club, which is food science and technology. And just to give you a little bit of background, UC Davis is the only UC in the system that has a food science and technology department in it. It's the number one in the state. It's the largest undergraduate program in the US and potentially the best program in the US. I'm a little biased, alumni. We also have a cultured meat consortium group, but we also have what we call a Davis Alt Protein project. And those are students, both undergraduates and graduate students, that are really interested in this segment of new food innovation. They have had multiple companies come onto campus. It was a really big push there when you couldn't find an employee to save your life and everybody was poaching from one company to the other. So they were really looking to get in front of the students. As products are really starting to develop more strongly, they're trying to get the students to showcase what they're doing. We've had Upcycle brought their spent brewer's grain to use high protein. They make flour from spent brewer's grain, which is the largest ag waste stream there is. It's just huge amounts of mass. And they make it into a flour, and they were required to do a recipe competition that utilized, I think it was like 12%. And the Davis Alt Protein Project won, utilizing 20% of their product to make a seitan, which is this really chewy dough boiled repeatedly in a spiced broth and then fried and then sliced and served in a taco. And to me, it tastes just like shredded beef. It was delicious. And I'm a hardcore carnivore. So it was really, really wonderful to see these products. Amazing food innovation. We've had vegan cheeses, we've had vegan charcuteries, we've had plant-based lamb products with precision-based fermentation, lamb flavorings, because we do a lot of sensory work here across campus.
Thank you for sharing the examples. That really brings it to life. You must be leading in that space here in the US. So fascinating work. And then you talked a bit about the challenges of scale up. So we've been hearing a lot about that. I know you and I met earlier this year at the Future Food Tech event in San Francisco. You hear a great deal about startups, other types of organizations working with larger strategics or centers to bridge that gap because it is so challenging. Tell me a bit more about how iCamp has been focused on collaborative partnerships. And if you could single out one that you feel has been particularly effective or has the potential to be particularly effective, that would be great.
Every different area has their ecosystem that they're building. 40% of the alternative protein companies are here in California. But when it comes to scale up, there's no scale up capacity. We're working on that. Scale up has been moving across the country. It's been moving out of country, Canada, Brazil in particular. Brazil invested huge amounts of money and has 600,000 liter capacity, which is just absolutely immense. You're talking like large building size for one fermenter. Having all that infrastructure within driving distance, easy driving distance, is more important than people like to mention. You want to work and live and have a good quality of life, not just do amazing things with your work, but also your lifestyle outside of work. What we're doing right around UC Davis, within 16 miles, there are 5 biotech incubators. And then there are 5 biotech research parks that are being built. The hope is to have early stage capacity at the university where I'm at. We have the first LEED Platinum winery, brewery, food pilot processing plant, dairy bioprocessing. We have tons of industry come see us because we're not under NDA. You can see our facilities and see and touch them. Being able to do early scale research and innovation that can then lead to startups that roll into the local incubators, which all have fermentation capacity to them. And then getting through that valley of death, which is so hypercritical for industry. And then we have other partners. Blue Rise Ventures partnered with Fulcrum. Blue Rise developed the Alameda Research Park where Good Meat and Shiru and Eclipse are all located. They're looking at capacity between 80 to 200,000 liters. If we think about being able to support all the early stage innovation that's in the Bay Area, we're less than an hour and a half away, depending on traffic. Being able to take all that innovation and support all of that innovation within easy driving. And then just an hour and a half south of us is the Central Valley, which is the largest producers of wine, dairy, eggs, poultry. So we're not looking at developing new infrastructure for food and beverage distribution. It's all here. We're just trying to build better fermentation capacity. If we can do that from a state possibly federal funding support, that biomanufacturing infrastructure, then companies don't have to become so vertical. They don't have to think about producing everything from the growth factors to the steel all themselves.
Certainly within the US, though, there are very few places that offer the combination of investors, high caliber research universities, and agriculture. There just aren't that many. So you really are uniquely positioned with the heritage of winemaking and fermentation, also kind of a unique factor. What's one question everyone should be asking about alternative proteins, but no one's asking?
What do we have to do to make it a large scale possibility? I guess that's something everybody is already asking, but we focus in our own silos, making cell cultures, and we focus on media and we focus on policy. But how do we put it all together? How do we pull all these separate strings together and really make delicious food? One big question and so touchy is how do we consider making hybrid products? The California farmer is struggling so hard. We might see more struggle or just a lot of shift between climate and global trade and things of that nature. Labor shortages. 71% of all farming families have at least one family member working off-site. When they come to the market, they're going to need to be positioned close to existing infrastructure, existing food and beverage distribution and packing and inspection. These are amazing job opportunities for families that are already having to find jobs off-site. We forget that possibility. I've been in a lot of workshops talking about how are they going to exist with each other in the future. And a lot of people are just thinking, we'll be completely separate. No, it's food. There will always be combinations, whether it's hybrid products or more nutritious products or just co-packing is going to be hypercritical. And we need to understand that portion as well.
We've been eating hybrid food products for centuries. For some reason, when we think about alternative proteins and maybe the models that they use and how they're getting to market versus traditional agriculture, either animal or plant agriculture in the US, they're very different. I think what you bring forward is really interesting. And I love your answer about how there really is common cause around economic opportunity versus seeing them as in opposition to each other, seeing them as complementary or even integrated. I'd love to see more organizations and individuals thinking about how to solve that and address it. I love where you headed with that answer.
One of the things that I always like to say to people is, when was the last time you had 100% ground beef meatloaf?
Yeah, exactly.
Chicken like it.
To me, as a marketer, it's like, we need a rebrand, right? We think about how,
I know. I was in a startup where pitch presentation to funders was priority number one. You try to create the rosiest, most, we're going to change the world. It's changing now. It's like, what are your numbers? What are the pragmatics of it? But we're going to eliminate animal agriculture, which was such a fallacy, but we need to create more resilience. It's hypercritical that we create more resilience in each of our spheres, not just here, but everywhere.
I agree. When you look ahead, Kara, 5 years, what are you most excited about in this space?
The idea of becoming more resilient. I'm one of those people that loves zombie and apocalyptic movies. I just love that. Even when I was 10, I grew up on a farm, even though my mom was a professor, my dad was a doctor. We lived on a farm for the view, but I was still packing away apples and canning produce and sticking it on the shelves. I think if the pandemic didn't teach us anything, it's how fragile our food systems are. Pyramid, shipping delays, trade wars, climate change, factory closures because of listeria outbreaks, the infant formula shortages, the meat packing closures, the change in soybeans we sell now versus how much we sold before. We just need to become more resilient and more flexible, and we need to diversify our food opportunities. If we can do that in a delicious, nutritious, culinary sense, because food is, like you said, it's such a part of us, then we will be a more resilient society in the face of change.
I agree. Hear, hear. So if people want to find out more about the work that iCamp is doing, where should they go?
Well, we have a website, and then we have our summit in the fall. It is going to be a day and a half this year, about 300 participants. Welcome to reach out to me, and I'm very available on LinkedIn as well.
Well, thank you, Kara. Sounds like a lot of exciting opportunities to get involved. I enjoyed our conversation. Thanks for joining.
This has been a lot of fun.
Thanks for joining us today on the latest episode of FoodTech Stories. Be sure and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform and keep an eye out for our bi-weekly episodes. I'm your host, Megan Thomas, founder of Ladder 17. FoodTech Stories is edited by TJG Media.